Hello, my name is Alexander Belkin, also known as Sanya. I am working in MariaDB Corporation as a developer. Today I want to tell you how to make your bug fixed faster. So, what can you do about your bugs? Of course, you can do nothing. Eventually, it will be fixed, but it takes a lot of time probably, especially if it's code not so many people are using. So, what is better? Better you have to invest something. For example, simplest way probably for somebody is money. You pay for support. Support help you to prepare a test case for the bug. Also, support bugs are have high priority. But there are other way. You prepare excellent test case and bug report, and then developers do not spend a lot of time on trying to figure out what to do and just start fixing it because problem is visible. Also, consciously or subconsciously, developers prefer some well-defined bugs with clear test case. Or you can do even both to make good test case and to pay for support and so get some high priority. But what developers want from you? Developers want the only thing, how to reproduce the bug. Another word, test case. So what could help reproduce the bug? The query. The query which caused the problem. It could be just query script, which has several queries or some step-by-step instruction which query to execute. Also database, like database dump or with all these tables, functions, and other structures related to the query. Also, it will be better if you, in clear words, describe what you wanted and what you got. So what's the problem? Also, it could be stack trace if it crashed. For some bugs, probably for most bugs, server version also important. We have not so many server versions, but you probably know what server you run. If it's really difficult to find exact version, just major number is enough, like 10.5 or 10.1 or whatever. Server configuration. Sometimes if you have some not usual server configuration, it's important. Or even if you have usual, but sometimes it depends on server configuration. But okay, if it's really difficult to get all configuration, maybe it's not, you can spend time on. Operating system, there are bugs which depend on operating system, not so many. Environment variables, so it's really rare that they help. So the query, where to get the query? Of course, it could be that you just know the query because you are writing your application, or maybe you just issue queries, handmade queries to the server. And it's rare case, but easiest. If no, then you probably could check your logs. Or first of all, you have to switch logging on. So general query log has impact on performance. So just don't do it like for all the time and just in hope to get something. So switch it on temporarily. It will be even better if it's not production database and you can just repeat the problem on your toy database. Also, you have to know that if there are many connections to the server, your query, like query which caused the problem, could be not the last query. It will be the last query in that connection which caused the problem. But there will be a lot of other queries around. So if you gave us your query log, it's better to get some several lines, not the last, and maybe all if it's not security important. Also, if server crashes, crash report procedure, try to write query to the error log. Sometimes it's impossible, sometimes it's do not get the query, but still maybe you have query in the error log. It's worth to check. How to solve what problem actually have sending us database. Database could contain confidential data or some private data. And also pay attention that whatever you attach to a bug report in our Jira, it will be public. So if it's not information you want to see to everybody, you better upload it on Foundation FTP. There is an article in MariaDB knowledge base how to do so. And the other problem with database is size. There are some huge, really huge databases, and it's not comfortable to send all of them. Okay, so of course we are happy to accept any size of database and any contents. We promise do not use it except just reproducing the problem, but still better be safe than sorry. So how to solve this problem? The easiest, simplest way, but not the most useful variant, is just to give us schema only schema or without data. So it's definition of tables, definition of procedures, definition of triggers and other stuff, but no data. Even in this case, it's better say something about data distribution, just because you probably know how data distributed. If you have more time, you could spend time on filling the database with some random or generated data and reproduce problem on the database. If you do not want us to see real table names or real field names or procedures names, after reproducing, you can just in, for example, in text dump of the database, change it on T1, T2 or something like this. But it's better after this check that problem is reproducible on this database. So what mistakes I saw? Of course, it's maybe some biggest mistake was filtered before I saw them. But still, many people trying to prove that there are some bugs. We really believe that there are some bugs. But it's not what important to us. It's important how to reproduce the bug. So don't spend a lot of time proving that there is some bug there. Just spend a bit more time on finding the way to reproduce it. Also, sometimes we get like very detailed description of operating system, of all setup of the server. But if it's usual standard configuration, usually it's not what we want. We want something reproducible. Sometimes we got only stack trace and nothing more. Okay, there are some bugs which could be solved by stack trace, but it's very, very unlikely. So even if you have only stack trace, it's also better to allow core dump and send us core dump with your binaries. Or maybe even with some libraries if it's needed. Because core dump can be viewed with debugger, and sometimes we could find something there. But to have good stack trace, one should install additional packages in the system, packages with debugging symbols, because otherwise even stack trace will be useless completely. So it's about this. So now let's try to make a bug report. To make a bug report, you have to be registered on Jira MariaDB org. So here in the top there is create button. Right? You got form to fill. So first of all, projects. It's important to correctly say what project has a bug. So let it be server. Then issue type, it's bug. Okay. Summary. Just put summary like you think it is. So let it be some function produce from result. Priority. Priority, it's okay, leave it as is. But if you feel that it's very important to you, you of course could put it like critical or even blocker. The problem is that the same field also used for our internal priorities. So after this, when bug will go in procession, like we will just do something, we will set our own priorities. But still you can state how important it is for you here. Components. Components, it's something really difficult to define sometimes, even for developer, until its bug nature will be found and fixed. So just leave it as is. If you're not sure, it's okay. Affected version. Here, if you know, you can just put version, like, for example, full version. Or if you're, okay, no, only general version, you can just do it also, for example, like this. Environment. As I told, don't spend a lot of time here, but okay, you can just put here Linux, for example, or Ubuntu. It's okay. Description. Here it's better put some description and better formatted nice. So let's write it. So, as you can see, I put here some formatting things. Of course, query itself better cut and paste than write it just to have no mistakes, types, typo in it or something else. Also, so what else? Okay, here I wrote that it's attached database. You can just attach here as a file or just put it on FTP. Then you have to write here that you put it on FTP, file name and other stuff. So let's create it. It will take some time. So here is our issue. And also it was spend some time, read the bug just to check that there are no mistakes or errors in it. So just look through what we have here. Some function on the uploaded way. If you need, you can just click and you got form to edit. Then, okay, also with other fields as well as it could be edit like the same form which you saw before or almost the same. So it's okay. Your bug created. So what then? Then as soon as you have some changes here in the bug reported, you will get email. What to have pay attention to? Comments. Here you can just add your comments. By the way, also some other people will put here comments. It could be communication between developers and support or between developers. Also, it could be internal notes of developers, but also it could be a question to you. Maybe something to define or something else. So just pay attention to comments, check if it's something asked. Also, there is a label field. Here could be label need feedback. It's clearly shows that developer or support or whatever who now processes the bug needs some information from you. So it will be better to answer. So that's what you have to know about bug creation and then answering question and other stuff. So here I put in the presentation all this just as notes, just because probably the presentation will be available on the web. So here's description of the fields I already presented to you. There are many other fields there, but they are mostly used for technical things by developers or support or other people. So it's about communication. And what if you still have time and inspiration to improve your bug reports? The clear way to improve the bug report is just reduce test case. But remember, before any improvement, just save what you already have, just to do not just lose it. So what you can reduce? You can reduce database. Just remove tables which are not used by the query. You can just remove fields maybe from the table which are not used or indexes. How to check if index is used? You can just check explain, for example. But in any case, if you remove something, check again if bug reproducible. So if no, just revert your changes. Also, you can simplify your query, because we could have like really big queries. So what you can, so especially if you have some suspicious part of the query, which is unusual or only in this query, or by some other reasons you think that this part causes problems. So just try to remove tables, maybe remove some clauses like while or from, or not from is impossible, like having or row by or whatever. So maybe they're not needed, or some queries, some functions maybe are also not needed here just to reproduce the problem. So this is not mandatory or just, but just can help later, because in any case this work will be done by somebody before bug fixing or during bug fixing. So that's all. I hope after that you will report really nice, tight bug reports. Thank you.